Hi everyone, welcome. In today's video, we want to build this to-do app. This to-do app works very well. We can add tasks. Let's say we want to go to church, and we can add, and it's added to the task list. So we can also wash dishes. Let's say we can study for exams. We can also visit friends. We can go out with friends. We can add, and let's add one last one. Let's say we want to walk the dog. Walk dog. Yes. So we can check a task as completed. Let's assume we have already gone to church. We have already studied for exam. We have already gone out with friends. So we have completed these tasks, and we can even uncheck them, and everything comes back to normal. And when we check, you see that we have this line through the text canceling it, meaning that we have already completed it. And once you uncheck it, it goes away. So we can check these ones as completed. We can delete them. So let's say we have completed this task, so we want to delete it. And even if we have not completed this task, but we think we don't need it again, we can also delete it. And it works for all of them. And take note of this: when we have a task inside the task list, there is this thing over here, task list. But whenever there is no task, it tends to no task. So this is working very well. What if you want to add a task, but we have not entered any task name? And we try, it say, please enter a task name to do. So this is very effective project. And we are building this one using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in few minutes. So grab your tools and let's get started. I've created this folder on my desktop, which I named To Do App. So I'll open this To Do App folder with my code editor, which is Visual Studio Code. So over here in the VS Code, I'll trace the directory to that folder we've created. It's on the desktop. So we have here To Do App. So I open this one. So over here in this folder, I want to create one file and name it index.html. And I want to create another folder for file for the CSS. So call it style.css, and also create one for the JavaScript and call it script.js. So in the index.html, I want to create the basic HTML boilerplate with tag, exclamation, and hit tab. And this generates the basic HTML boilerplate. So we'll change the document here to whatever we want to build. This is the title, so we'll call it To Do App. And after this, we want to link the HTML to the CSS. So we type link and set the href to the style.css file. And after this, in the body, we want to create a div and give it a class container. And we can give the CSS styling for this container div. So we'll first select the entire document, remove all margin 0, padding 0, and set box sizing to border box. And now we can select the container, set the width 100%, height 100 VH, give it some background color of aqua, some padding, 20 pixels. We'll come back to the HTML file and open this website with the VS Code Live Server extension, which I highly recommend you have. So over here, you can see we have this blank web page with the background color on it. So let's continue with the HTML. So now in the HTML, in the container div, we'll create another div and give it a class To Do Container. In this, we'll create an h2 header and give the header to our app is To Do. So after this h2 header, we want to create another div and give it a class Add Task. And in this one, we'll create one input field, which is where we enter the name of the task we want to perform and also a button to add to the task list. So we'll create one input, and the type is text. You can remove the name and set the ID to Add Task Input and give it a placeholder, enter task name. So after this input, we'll create the button and give it a class Add Task BTN. and the text is add task. If we run this, you can see we have this on the web page now. So let's give the CSS styling for this. So over here, let's first select the to-do container. So we have it here, to-do container. Give it a width, 50%. We set margin auto. Background color should be white. Give it display, flex, align items, center, justify content, center. So you can see we have everything in the middle because we have given margin auto. And everything inside the container is also aligned in the middle because we've set display flex. Align items to center and justify content also center. So now let's style the H2 inside the to-do container. We set width 80%. We give it some padding, 7 pixels, some margin at the bottom, say 1 rem. And now let's style the add tags div. Give it width 80%, margin auto, some padding, 10 pixels should be okay. Now let's style the input inside this div. So add tags. We set width and height. So now let's select the button. So add tags, button. So now we can run this code with the live server extension again, or we can just save the code. We have this so far, but it's not aligned the way we want it to. We want it to be vertically aligned. So over here in the to-do container, we set flex direction to column. And we'll remove the justify content so that it will be aligned from the left. Center. So now you see we have this and it's looking the way we want it to. So over here, we'll go back to the HTML. And after this closing display tags div, we want to create one H2 header. And we'll give it an ID, list header. And inside of it, let's put the text task list. And after this, we'll create another div with the class display tags. And inside of this display tags div is where we are going to have each to-do row. And inside of each to-do row, we'll have a checkbox and we'll have a title for it, and we'll have a delete button. So that's what we're going to be creating for each row inside of this display tags div. So let's create a div and give it a class task list. And inside of this one, we'll create a checkbox and also a place, the title, where we'll have the title and also a delete button. So we'll create an input, and the type is checkbox. So checkbox, you can remove the name, even the ID, we'll make it a class. And here we'll give it a class, task checked. And after this, we'll create a span with a class, title span. So this where we'll have the title of the to-do. So let's say to-do 1. So this is the first one. And after this, we'll create the delete button. So we'll create a button and give it a class delete to-do btn. We'll set the inner text to delete, del, short for delete. So this div here with the class task list is a container for each to-do item. So in each of them, we'll be having an input field for the checkbox and the title and also a button to delete. Right, let's change this one, the H2 to an H3. I think that one would make it better. Okay, so let's give the CSS styling. Now we'll start with the H3 and it is inside the container div. H3. We'll change the font size. We've changed the color and we set the width to 75%. Now let's start the div with the class display tags. Now let's start the other div with the class task list. It's inside the display task. So with padding, set display flex. Space between. We'll give it margin button. So now let's start the input inside the task list. Task list, the input. We set the width to 18 pixels. The height 18 pixels and cursor to pointer. And if we save this, you can see where we are getting so far. So now let's start the span and also the delete button. So we select the span. Task list span. We set the font size to 1 rem, increase the font width, and also set the color to black. So now let's start the button, the delete button. We set the width to 50 pixels. And finally, we set cursor to pointer. So that when you hover over it, the cursor changes to pointer, indicating that it's clickable. So when we save this, you can see now everything is looking the way we want it to. So we can click this and uncheck. So we are basically done with the HTML and CSS. So we can also increase the number of tags we have just by copying this task list. Say we want to paste it again. We can change this one to do 2. This is the second one. You can see we have 2 items over here with different names, to do 1 and to do 2. But this is not the point of the video. We don't want to be adding tags by copying the task list and pasting. So our job now is to use JavaScript to be able to add this task list div to the display tags div whenever a user clicks on it using the input, whatever the user input as the title of the to-do item, to replace this to do 1, to do 2 that we are putting inside here. So to start with the JavaScript, let's link the HTML to the JavaScript. So TypeScript, set the src to the JavaScript. So the HTML is now linked to the JavaScript. To check that, we can make an alert statement. Hello. And when we save, you come here, you can see we have this hello over here. It means the HTML is actually connected to the JavaScript. So now we can remove this one. And inside the JavaScript, first we want to select the add tags button, the input for adding the tags, which is this one. We want to select the input field and the button here, and also select the display tags div, which is this one right here. So we'll select that in the JavaScript. So let's start with the input. Let's equal to document.query selector, and we pass the ID in quote. Since it's an ID, we select with the hashtag, and what we want is the ID we want is add tags input. Now let's also select the add tags button. Yes, and with a dot, set the name, and we'll select the display tags div. This time we'll select with class name. Get elements by class name, and the class we want is display tags. This document.select get element by class name returns the list of all the items with this class. And since we only want the first one, say at index 0. So now let's add event listener to the button so that when someone clicks the button, a tags will be added. So over here, we have already selected the button, so we just add tags button dot add event listener, and it's a click event. And when it is clicked, we want to call an error function. Inside this function, whatever we put here will be executed whenever the button is clicked. For instance, we can say alert when we click hello world. We get here and click this, it alerts us hello world. So we can put our logic inside this function now. Now what we want to do is that we want to be sure whenever a user clicks this button, we want to be sure that this input field is not empty before he clicks this one. So we check if the input which we have selected here, add tags input, the value is not equal to an empty string. Then we'll execute whichever logic we put inside this if statement. And the else part will just alert the user that they have not entered anything into the to-do title. So we'll alert them that enter a task to do. So when we save this and try, we have not entered anything, and we click, it say enter a task to do. So this is what we want to do. So now let's put the remaining logic. What we want to happen whenever a user enters a task title and click the add button. And when that happens, what we want to do is to be able to create this task list div. We'll create this div and put with the input, the span, and the button, which represent all that each of the to-do items have: the input, the title, and the button to delete. So that's what we are going to do whenever a user clicks this button. So let's add that in the JavaScript. So first we'll create the task list div. So let task list equals create element, and the element we want to create is a div. And remember, it has the class task list. So over here we say task list dot class list dot add, and we'll add the class to it, because if you see over here, that's the class we have over here, task list. So that's what we're creating. And after this, we want to append it to the parent div, which is the display tags div. So over here, we'll append it to the display tags div as a child. So now we've been able to create this task list div and appended it to the parent div, which is the display tags div. So we are left with the input, which is the checkbox, the span, and also the delete button. So with the checkbox, we'll say task check create element. But we have to be able to tell what type of input is it. So we'll say task check the set attribute, and the attribute we want to set is a type. And what type do we want to set? Comma, and it's a checkbox. So now we'll add the class to it. We'll add that class. And then we can append it to the task list div. Or append chart. We want to append the task check. Here I realized that I made a mistake here. Instead of task, I said talk. So when we save this code and inspect this page, so in the elements tab we have the container, we have the to-do container and display task. You can see we have these two items over here, which is what we already have in the HTML. When we try to enter something, let's say this, and we click, you'll see that it keeps adding this div over here. There's nothing in it though. We only have this checkbox input with type checkbox inside of it, and the class is task checked over here, and that's what we did with the JavaScript so far. So we can say our code is working as at this point. So now let's create that for the span, the title span. Let the task title, and we have to add the class. So remember we have this class for it in the HTML. And we are adding all this class so that it can inherit the CSS styling we give to it in the CSS file. That's if you are wondering. And as you can guess by now, you can realize that this span has a text inside of it. And that's the title of the to-do item we are adding. So we'll say dot text content should be equal to whatever a user types into this input field. So it should be equal to add task input dot value. That's whatever a user types inside of it. So now we can append it to the task list div. And finally, we want to create the delete button. So as usual, we'll let delete btn equal to, we want to create a button. And you can see inside of this button, we have this text over here, delete, del for delete. So we'll add the text content for this. Del for delete. And we have to add the class to it. Adding this class to it. Delete to do btn. We'll finally append it to the task list. Delete btn. So now if we inspect the page again, after saving this, now we can put something in here, say this, and when we add it to task, you see we have this here, and now we can see that we have the items we want inside of it, the checkbox, the span, and also the delete button. So we are getting somewhere. And you can see over here that it is added. And we can add a different one, let's say B, we can add it. But one thing you can realize is that whenever we type anything and click the add button, we still have the text over here and want it to be removed. So after the delete button, add tax input the value to be equal to an empty string. For that, when we add anything, let's say we add, it comes back to an empty string. The place is cleared, the input is cleared. So now our code is working. You can see we can add tags now, multiple tags we can check, but when we check, nothing happens. And when we delete, we click the delete button also, nothing happens. So we have to add these functionalities now. So now let's add the delete functionality. So after we have created everything that we want to be able to delete. So now we have to select the delete buttons, the newly created delete buttons. You can see that all the delete buttons can be found inside this tags display tags div. So inside of it we have this tags list and it contains all the delete buttons. So over here we have the same thing. We created the tags display and all the tags list inside of it. So we select the newly created buttons. We select, call it new del btn, should be equal to display tags dot get. Let's use the query selector. We select all of them, and what we want to select is this delete btn, and we can look through all of them using for loop and set event listener of all of them. So say for var I equals 0, and we'll continue this iteration as long as I is less than the new delete button dot length. And after every iteration, we'll increment I by 1, so I plus plus. So we have to set event listener on all the buttons at every iteration. So we say new delete btn at index of I. Then we add event listener tree dot add event listener, and it's a click event. And when we click on it, we'll call a function. We can define an arrow function in here, but I prefer using the traditional function. We'll call a function called delete task function. So let's define this delete task function after the if statement, the conditional. Okay, so let's call it delete task function. So, and it takes an event, but we just call it E. So this event represents the item that is being clicked. And when this item is clicked, we want to select the parent element of it. This is the button, the delete button, and the parent element of it is the task list div over here. And we want to select it and remove it. So we say e.target.parent element dot remove. So we'll call the remove function on the parent element. So let's see if this works. Sorry, I just realized that I didn't put a dot here. We are selecting with query selector and it's a class. So now we can save and head to the page. And when we click this, you see that nothing happens. But whenever we add something and call the remove, it removes it. And this is because we create this delete function after we have created these new buttons, not outside of this function. If it were outside of this function, it would have worked for these ones also, the ones that we've created in the HTML. So to be at the safer side, we can just comment this one out inside the. And now when we save, so now we don't have anything here, but we can enter, add the task, we can check it, we can delete it, we can add a task. But when we check, nothing happens, and it seems we have a problem with the checkbox and this one, but I don't know. So say that's checked dot set attribute. We want to set a type, and the type is a checkbox. And when we save this, I think this should work now. When we add, we can check and uncheck. So I can't tell exactly what the problem was. But now you can see that when we add a task, any task, and click the checkbox, nothing happens. What we actually want to do is to change the background color for this div, which is the task list, and also make this one crossed. We want to cancel this text over here, the title. So let's add that in the JavaScript. So just as we did for the delete buttons, we can also do it for the checkboxes. So we can copy this entire thing over here and paste it here and make some changes to it. So here, instead of delete button, we can say checkbox. And we'll change the delete btn here to what we have here, which is tags checked. So we can copy it. So here becomes new checkbox dot length, new checkbox, and over here new checkbox. And over here, instead of delete tags, we will say check tags. So check tags function. So let's define this check tags function. So after the delete function, right here we can create a check. We also take an event. So this time let's use event. With this, when we check a task, we want this text over here to be crossed, and also the background color should change. So we'll select the parent element and also the title inside the parent element. So to get the parent element, say let's say parent element be equal to the parent element, and that will be the task list div. And we also want to get the title, but the title is in the parent element. So from this parent element, we can also get the title. Let be equal to parent selector, the query selector, and it's a class. We want to select a class, so with a dot title span, that's the class we give to it. So now we have to check whether the checkbox has been checked. Remember, the checkbox is the event over here. So we'll use condition. We'll say if checked. It means the checkbox has been checked. We want something to happen. We first want to take the parent element, which we call the parent element, and change the style for it, the background. So the style, and you should check the spelling for the background color in the camel case should be equal to this RGB color code. So you can see when we save this and head over here, let's say we enter a task and we check, the background color changes. So this is working at least. And after that, we also want to take the title. Should be equal to line through. So if we save this and enter a task, now when we check, you can see that the text is also cancelled. But when we uncheck, nothing happens, it remains the same. So let's set the condition when it's not checked. And for that, it's just going to remain as it was from the very beginning. So the else, we take the parent element and change the background color back to what it was. Color should be equal to, and the text decoration should be none. So we can copy this. So when we save this thing and add some tasks, let's say we add some tasks, and we check, and we uncheck, it turns back to normal the way it is. But you will notice one problem over here. We have tasks over here and it says task list, and when we delete everything, we still have task list, and we don't want it to be like that. We want this to change. We want it to change to no task when there is no task in the task list. So with that, over here, we'll create a function, another function. Let's call it set task function. This one doesn't take any event. And for that, we'll check whether the display task over here has children inside of it. It means there is an element inside. We have a task inside. So we check when there is no task, we change the text to no task rather than taskless. So for that, we'll set a condition. We have a condition if the displayed task dot has child nodes. If that's true, then we'll select this h2 with the id list header. So we'll say document get element by id, and the id is. Then we'll set the inner HTML to task list. Else, it means there is no task inside the task list. We'll copy this and paste it over here. And instead of task list, we'll change it to no task. And whenever the page loads, we have to call this function to check whether there is task inside the task list. So we'll call this function right after establishing it. Now, when we save this and head over to the page, we still have this over here. We still have task list over here. And when you look inside the HTML, we have this thing over here. Even though we commented this, but we still have it here. So we can clear this off. And when we save, we should have no task over here. But this only works once the page is loaded. So when we have task over here, we add it, still no task, because nothing prompts this function to be called whenever we create or we delete anything. When we delete all these things and it's not inside again, you see that we still have this no task over here. So what we do is, over here in the JavaScript, whenever we call the delete function, after we delete, we have to call this function too. And whenever we create a new to-do, we also have to call this function. So after this, we can also call this function. And it works very well. So now, we have no task. It changes to task list. And when we delete, we should have no task. So over here, we can add as many tasks we want. And we can check and uncheck. We can delete tasks and everything goes. We can check, we can delete, we can do everything. And once there's no task, everything changes to no task. And when we click this without adding any title, it asks us to add a task to do. So folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video, how we build this simple to-do app using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you find any value in this video so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this one. If you have any question, please do leave it in the comment section below. And I hope to see you in the next video. As always, thanks for watching.